Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. Alright, so, if you watched the short, you already know I teased something about one of these cloud services doing something a little questionable behind the scenes. Yeah, we're getting to that. But before I reveal it, you actually need the full picture. Because without context, it won't really hit the way it should. See, most people don't choose a cloud storage service. They just end up with one. Google Drive came with your Gmail, so you use that. OneDrive came pre-installed on your Windows laptop, so you stuck with it. Dropbox. Well, a lot of you probably created an account years ago, maybe in college, and never really thought about it again. And that right there is the problem. That's not a decision. That's just default behavior. So today, we're actually going to compare these properly. Not just surface level stuff, but the things that actually matter: storage, pricing, privacy, usability. And yes, I'll reveal the exact thing I teased earlier. Let's get into it. First, let's talk about something nobody really explains clearly. Cloud storage sounds simple, right? You upload a file, it sits on a server somewhere, and you can access it anytime from any device. Easy. But that's not the full story. Because when a company gives you free storage, it's not really free. Think about it. Storage costs money. Servers cost money. Bandwidth costs money. So if they're giving you 5 gigabytes, 10 gigabytes, or even 15 gigabytes for free, they're getting something in return. Sometimes it's your data. Sometimes it's pushing you toward a paid plan. And sometimes it's hidden limitations you only discover when it's too late. Let's break it down. Starting with Google Drive. On paper, it looks great. You get 15 gigabytes for free, which is the highest among the three. But here's the catch most people don't realize. That 15 gigabytes is shared across everything. Your Gmail, your Google Photos, your Drive files, everything. So if your inbox is full of years of emails, attachments, random subscriptions you never unsubscribed from, that's eating into your storage. And suddenly, that 15 gigabytes doesn't feel like 15 gigabytes anymore. Now let's talk about OneDrive. The free plan? Honestly, not great. You only get 5 gigabytes. But here's where things get interesting. If you're using Microsoft 365, like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, your storage jumps to 1 terabyte. That's a massive jump. So if you're already paying for Office anyway, OneDrive suddenly becomes a very strong option. And then there's Dropbox. This one gives you just 2 GB for free. Yeah, the smallest of the three. But Dropbox built its reputation on one thing: reliability. It was one of the first platforms to really nail file syncing. Fast, consistent, and rarely breaking. And because of that, a lot of longtime users still trust it, even if it's more expensive. Now here's the bigger picture. None of these companies are really making their money from storage. That's not the real business model. The real business is lock in. Once all your files, photos, and important documents are inside one ecosystem, switching becomes a pain. A real pain. And that's exactly what they want. Because the harder it is to leave, the longer you stay. Now let's compare them side by side. Starting with pricing. Google Drive has pretty affordable plans. Around a couple of dollars a month for 100 gigabytes, and it scales up from there. It also bundles into Google One, which sometimes includes extra perks like VPN access on higher plans. Not bad. OneDrive pricing is similar at the base level. But again, the real value comes from Microsoft 365. Because for just a bit more, you're not just getting storage, you're getting the entire Office suite. Word, Excel, PowerPoint, all included. So if you already use those tools, OneDrive becomes very hard to beat. Dropbox, on the other hand, is usually more expensive for the same amount of storage. But what you're paying for is performance. Their sync engine is still one of the best, especially when you're dealing with large files or big folders. And their collaboration tools are also quite solid. Now let's talk about something way more important. Privacy. All three services encrypt your files. That's standard now. Your data is protected while it's being uploaded and while it's stored. But here's the real question. What can they actually access? Google, for example, uses automated systems across its ecosystem. These systems can scan content for things like spam, security threats, and in some cases, signals for ad personalization. Now, Drive itself isn't the main focus of ad scanning the way Gmail used to be. But you are still part of a larger data ecosystem. And that's something you should be aware of. Microsoft, with OneDrive, takes a more enterprise-focused approach. Especially if you're using it through work or school. They focus heavily on compliance, security standards, and business-level protection. So in that sense, it's often seen as more structured and controlled. Dropbox has had its own issues in the past. There was a major security incident years ago that forced them to rethink everything. Since then, they've significantly improved their security systems. But that history is still something worth knowing. Now let's talk usability. Google Drive is amazing if you're already using Google tools. Docs, Sheets, Meet. Everything connects seamlessly. OneDrive works best if you're inside the Windows and Microsoft ecosystem. Everything integrates smoothly with your desktop and Office apps. And Dropbox. Still one of the best when it comes to pure file syncing. Especially across different platforms. So there's no clear winner here. It really depends on your setup. Now let's get into the stuff most people don't talk about. The insider tips. First, you should never rely on just one cloud service. Seriously. People who've actually lost important data will tell you this. Use the 3-2-1 rule. 3 copies of your data. 2 different types of storage. And 1 separate cloud provider. Because if something goes wrong, an outage, an account issue, anything, you're not stuck. Second, check your shared links. A lot of people don't realize this, but files you shared years ago might still be accessible. Old links. Forgotten permissions. They're still out there. So go into your settings and clean that up. And now, the thing I teased in the short. This is important. If you're using OneDrive with Microsoft 365, you get 1 terabyte of storage. Sounds great, right? But here's the catch. That storage is tied to your subscription. If you cancel Microsoft 365, your storage doesn't just stay at 1 terabyte. It drops. And if your files exceed the new limit, you get a limited time before things start getting restricted. Or worse, deleted. So if you're storing a huge amount of data there, thinking it's permanent, just remember, it's not really yours. It's rented. And that can catch people off guard. So yeah, not some crazy conspiracy, but definitely something most people don't expect. At the end of the day, there's no perfect choice. It all depends on what you value. Convenience, privacy, price, or flexibility. But now I'm curious, which one are you using right now? And be honest, did you actually compare them before choosing? Or did you just go with whatever was already there? Drop your answer in the comments. I'll tell you if you should be worried. If you found this video helpful, hit like and subscribe to IQ Tech Nova for more tech tips.